Hello, this is Mike from Dimensional Walking. Today I want to talk about Sasquatch sightings over the years in Russia. Now, Russia has never really covered up very much their Sasquatch sightings. Okay, I'm not saying the government there over the years hasn't just raised the flag and said we got lots of Sasquatch here, but generally speaking, they're pretty open to discussion. They don't suppress that type of discussion as long as it's not about politics or stuff like that. They're fairly open, UFOs included, and Sasquatch. So I want to go through some of them. Some are pretty dang interesting and have affected quite a few people. And of course, having such a vast area, vast forested area, and where many people haven't even stood on some of the ground at all, except for possibly cryptids. So, anyways, let's talk about Sasquatch, and I'll give you some really interesting stories. I've had a few friends that have emailed me from in the past, not recently, but in the past from Russia, talking about their experiences and telling me about some other people's experiences that they heard about in local areas in Siberia primarily. So, anyways, this first one is from Alta Mountains in Siberia. This goes back to the 1940s, and this happened at night. And there was a group of hunters that stumbled across this gigantic, and I mean gigantic footprint. This footprint, when they measured it, they were saying it was 32 inches. Think about that. It's almost a yard. I mean, that's a huge, huge footprint. So they really, just by seeing that, they were just gripped in this fear because the size of the creature or whatever this was going to be huge. But it was a regular Sasquatch, big, gigantic footprint. And so they apparently started walking and looking around a little bit more, and suddenly they came to a clearing, and there was a 9 foot one, at least a 9 foot Sasquatch. It was covered in this very dark uh, hair. They call it fur, but it's really hair. And but it quickly did vanish. It didn't really stay around, but just the sight of it. Now they did cast the footprint and I believe I've seen it not in person, but I've seen it online, and it looked like it was at least 32 inches long. So it was pretty incredible to see this. And I can see how frightening it would be. Now, I would expect it with 32 inches. I would expected it to be taller than 9 foot because they've talked about people have talked about seeing Sasquatch over 12 foot, even some as high as 18. Now that would be unbelievable if it was 18 foot, but definitely 12. It seems to be that's possible. So then there was this one. The next one is in 1978, and it's in Oblis, Siberia, and it was a daytime sighting. And so there's some really dense forest up in that area. And there was a group of researchers collecting geological data when they were heard this unsettling sound, large uh, whistles echoing through the trees. The whistles grew closer and apparently and not apparently, accompanied by snapping branches. Fearful that they followed the sounds, and there was these amazing footprints, and there was disrupted vegetation suggesting that there was a massive creature. The whistles faded as mysterious as they began, and then they were left with a very eerie silence. But this was a multi-witness one. I think this group had about 12 people. They all heard and saw what they saw. And they all believed in the end that it was some massive Sasquatch that was roaming through the forest there. Then there was another one. It was in the Caucasus Mountains, and then they called this one kind of the face in the fog. And so deep in the Caucasus Mountains, which I want to tell you, the Caucasus Mountains is one of the places where there's a lot of Sasquatch sightings. So there's a group of hikers that suddenly were like enveloped in a very thick fog. Suddenly, a face emerged from the mist, and it was a large face, and it was covered in matted fur, or I guess hair, we'll call it. The hikers froze, staring into the creature's dark eyes. The, fa- the face lingered for a moment before disappearing back in the fog, leaving the hiker shaken and speechless. And they pretty much this speculated they had seen what they call the Yeti of the Caucasus region, which is all mass. And so, anyways, that story, I've heard that story before several times. And again, because it was a I think there was like 7 or 8 hikers that were together that witnessed this. And it was pretty profound for them. It was extremely profound. So then there's another place in 1991, a place called Komi Republic in Siberia. Again, you notice that it's all pretty much Siberia, although the Caucasus Mountains are in kind of a little bit towards the south and the southwest of what you would traditionally call Siberia. So this particular encounter kind of turned kind of dark fairly quickly. So there's a group of loggers, and they were attacked by a large hairy creature while they were working at night. The creature roared through logs and injured one of the men before disappearing into the darkness. The attack left the loggers traumatized and convinced that they had encountered a real life Yeti. Next one. This was in the Ural Mountains. This is also a place where I've heard of a lot of Sasquatch sightings. This was in the 2000s. I don't think we have an exact even year on this one. It says it was done. It was during the daytime, and so again, the Ural Mountains seem to be also, I guess we'll call it a hot spot. So they did see this group of I think there was 4 individuals here. They got several castings of 16-inch long, 8-inch wide um, uh, casting of a footprint of a, well, it sort of looked like a human footprint. That's what they said at first. And of course, that was just typical. Apparently, in the Ural Mountains, like I said, there's a lot of these sightings, and they cast a lot of footprints in the Ural Mountain area. And it seems to be there's a heavy population of Sasquatch there. Then there's this next one. I'm going to call this one kind of the shaman guardian, and this is in Yuka, Siberia. Sorry, I don't think I'm pronouncing it right, but that's the way it is. This is a story that was kind of passed down for many generations, and this one happened at night. I always like to know if it's day or night sighting. It comes from the oral tradition of the Yukat people. A shaman was performing a ritual in the forest, and he was approached by a towering, fur-covered figure, and the shaman called him the protector of the forest. And many times they are, by shamans and native tribes, are considered the Sasquatch, the Yeti, protector of the forests. And so the next one is the Yeti of uh, Kamchatka province in Siberia. So this is interesting. This was a group of volcanologists, and they were exploring one of the very large volcanoes up there, and he witnessed this dark figure moving across the snowfield at night. The figure, of course, was bipedal, walked on had a very unusual gait, uh, leaving behind these large footprints in the snow. Now, this unusual gait they're talking about, I think, is the same gait you probably saw in the Patterson film, that kind of stride, that unusual stride with the movement of the arms. I think that's the gait. That's the typical kind of gait when people see a reasonably close, have a close encounter with a Sasquatch that is moving. Um, I guess it was difficult for them to exactly discern what it was. I mean, they all felt it was a Yeti, uh, but there was actually a lot of Yeti activity in volcanic regions. Uh, I live in a volcanic region here in Oregon, and Washington and Oregon and Northern California are all volcanic areas. And there is a lot of Sasquatch here, by the way, as you may know. Um, then the next one we're going to talk about is howls in Shoka Mountains. And this was in the 1980s and it was at night. And there were some hunters in the mountains that reported hearing this loud howling, extremely loud, haunting echoes through the valley at night. They described them unlike any animal they had heard before, suggesting that the creature had immense size and power. Though no visual sightings were made, the chilling cries added to the Yeti lore of the region. I will tell you this: an experience that I shared with everybody of a friend of mine that was a hunter down in just southern Oregon, and he got really close, had an extremely close encounter with a Yeti. I mean, with a Sasquatch, as we call him. It could be, the same thing. Anyways, the sound that this Yeti made, or this Sasquatch made, actually flipped him right over. It was that loud. And of course, he was only 8 foot away when the Sasquatch let out this rip of a sound. But the vibration and the sound was so good, so powerful, it flipped him over. So this is what they're talking about. So, anyways, there was this. Then we go back to the Alta Mountains in Siberia in the 1950s, and there was a lone hunter who vanished mysteriously away, tracking a mule deer, a herd of mule deer in these mountain areas. Search parties found no trace of him except large footprints leading deep into the wilderness. Rumors swirled that a Yeti was responsible, suggesting that the hunter had maybe stumbled into its territory. Now, you probably know, let me just make a comment about that. The reason I put this one in here, because I just want to say a few more things. Many hunters that I have personally talked to have always felt when they went into a certain area or region of hunting and suddenly there's this weird feeling that comes over them, or maybe they're pelted with some small rocks or pine cones, uh, or there's a lot of pre knocking going on around them, that they're not welcome. And the Sasquatch, I believe, have territories, and they don't really want humans going through their territory, especially if they're hunting. I think if you're just a hiker walking through, I don't think they really care, but they keep a close watch on what's happening in their territories, and I think that is extremely true. So let's see what we got else. What else do we got here? Oh, let's see. Okay. Well, I think we're down to the end. That was it. That was the last one. So anyways, again, Russia has a lot of Yeti sightings, as they call them there. And again, I think they're going to have them for a very long time. Let's face it, Yetis and Sasquatch and Owies are everywhere. A lot of people just thought they're in certain areas. Now, there's certain areas seem to be a little more active, but I think you can find them anywhere in the United States, from the Pacific Northwest to the Midwest to the Northeast, to Florida even. Texas has got quite a few of them, Oklahoma. So they're everywhere. And there's, some people say there's only a couple thousand in North America. I think there's many, many more Sasquatch families here. So with all that said, that's it. Catch you another day. Bye bye.